Hey everybody, Health Coach Erin here. Today I wanted to do a chat with you that is in a little bit different kind of realm than the things that we usually talk about. Today I wanted to share some kind of personal information with you about my past week and actually a recent diagnosis, and then also continue that into a segue of talking about how we deal with initial diagnosis of what may be chronic health issues, disease, syndromes, and things of that sort. First and foremost, I'm okay. It is a diagnosis that I have been anticipating for some time, because all kind of signs and symptoms recently anyway have pointed to there. But I was actually diagnosed this week with a syndrome called fibromyalgia. And I'll probably talk about that a little bit more in another conversation, perhaps. Kind of the more I learn about this and kind of ease into what this means for me. So it's still pretty new, even as much as I've read about it and felt like this is what may be coming. And also in this conversation, I don't do this too often, but I'm kind of taking the health coach hat off here and really just kind of speaking to you as one human being to another, or one human being to a group of other human beings, just kind of in search of relation and conversation about these types of things, because they can affect so many of us. So really this is just kind of me talking out loud and anticipating that other folks are either dealing with or have dealt with or may deal in the future with something just like this. So this is just kind of my generalized and initial approach at processing and filtering through these things as I go. So first, I will say that even if it's anticipated or something that we may be expecting or have even been fighting for, diagnosis can be overwhelming. It's important to learn as much as you can about your disease or your syndrome or your issue or illness. But I think my advice here, just as a person, would be to take a metered approach to this, because it can be overwhelming. There's often lots and lots of information coming at us very quickly and in high volume. So try to take, how do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And I would say that certainly applies here. So that may be the same approach that I would encourage us in this initial stage anyway, to kind of dig lightly but consistently. And also be sure that you're looking into reliable sources of information. There's so much information, so much misinformation out there, that we need to maybe speak with practitioners or other people who we may come in contact with who know a little bit more about this, initially what some reliable sources of information are. Another thing to remember is that research is happening all the time, and so the recommendations that may have been true 5 years ago may have changed. So we want to make sure that we're reading the most up-to-date picture of what's happening and get a comprehensive view. And I would also say, give yourself credit for getting through initial diagnosis, because it can be a long and arduous and exhausting journey. There's a certain amount of relief that comes with it sometimes, but just pat yourself on the back, shoulder, whatever. Secondly, keep a regular relationship with your doctor or medical practitioner. Follow through with appointments and checkups as best you can. I know life can get crazy, but try not to, I'm trying not to let these things fall on the back burner, and I'm keeping that in the forefront, especially initially as we work through information and maybe new medications or new plans of care and things like that. We need to keep a regular ongoing relationship with our caretakers. if a doctor prescribes you medication, let's take them as instructed, but let your practitioner know if you have any side effects that you've noticed since you've started taking a medication. In fact, ask up front when you're prescribed a medication if there are any side effects that you can expect. Most practitioners are great about going through these things with patients, but they see a lot of patients and they're human beings as well. So asking about side effects is kind of a good rule of thumb for me. And do let your practitioner know if side effects happen, especially if they're unexpected ones. I'll speak from my own experience here. In the last, 6 months or so, my practitioner tried several medications with me, and I had really, really terrible side effects on one of them, and had to stop taking the medication. They weren't necessarily common side effects, but we're all different. Our chemistry works different, so what may work for someone else may have devastating effects for me, and that was certainly true. That medication happens to be on my list of allergies now, so I'll be avoiding that again at all costs. No, and our practitioners will also let us know if we can expect side effects that may subside after our bodies regulate to medications and things like that, but you can always ask about them. You know your body, and I know my body better than anyone else. Even our highly intelligent and well-trained practitioners. We know when something feels right or wrong, and it's important to communicate that. However, having said that, it can be difficult for us to describe or convey pain or certain sensations to other people. And often practitioners are well aware of that and can even help us through those moments. But just know sometimes it might be difficult to tell someone else what you're experiencing. So keeping regular and open communication can be helpful for you and your doctor. So thirdly, something that I found extremely helpful, and I started doing religiously, for lack of a better term, and consistently, daily, multiple times a day, which can feel like a part-time job, but it was extremely important to me to get to diagnosis. Track your symptoms in a way that is manageable for you and that you can communicate with your doctor or your practitioner. You may have already done this to get diagnosis, as I did, but I am going to continue tracking symptoms because it may help identify certain things that help me or other things that may worsen symptoms. I think tracking, even as it may seem simple, can go a very long way in helping you and your healthcare provider find possible management strategies. Another point that I'd like to make is know that when you share your diagnosis, there may be various reactions from the folks that you share that information with. This may include everything from the dreaded, "you look fine to me," or "you don't look sick," to the well-intended, but perhaps often ill-informed kind of barrage of advice. I do feel that most folks, they're not trying to do any harm. They want us to feel better. They want us to feel well. They care about us and our well-being, and they don't want us to be sick. However, it can be quite frustrating to encounter, and trust me, you'll get lots of unsolicited advice. So I think we try not to let that frustrate us too much, but especially when we initially get a diagnosis and are sharing that information out for the first time. We may get lots of well-intending people giving us advice. Ultimately, we will find healthy ways to handle those moments and handle conversations with people. And maybe this is the perfect opportunity for us to turn these into teaching and educational moments for others. And all of this new research and reading that we're doing for ourselves and our kind of newly diagnosed issues, we can use that moments to pass that knowledge on to someone else. So the last point I'll make about kind of how we may find ways to work through initial diagnosis and get ourselves through this is advocate for yourself and find support. Advocating for yourself may look different in different situations. I feel like that can sometimes mean speaking up. In situations, sometimes we're around a lot of experts, and we need to, as the person who is dealing with this, of course, take that information in from experts and others, but also be able to speak up if we feel like something maybe isn't right or isn't helpful to us. Sometimes advocating for ourselves can mean asking for help. As we said in point number 1, this can be overwhelming. And so knowing when we might need someone else to kind of help us through things, whether that's emotionally or mentally or physically, that could mean relying on friends and family or loved ones. It could mean seeking, talking things out with a counselor. And I feel that advocating for ourselves can also mean making changes to relationships when that is appropriate or helpful to us. And that can mean medically or otherwise. So it can also mean, and I think this is an important one, especially if we're facing chronic issues or illnesses, connecting with others who understand. Find support groups, meetings, or chats. There are so many support groups for things through Facebook or other social media. Many times doctors will know of kind of support groups and can get you involved with those things or get you connected. And sometimes friends or other people, family members, or folks that you know who may be dealing with some of the same issues are willing to help or willing to kind of recommend some things that have helped them. Ask your doctor and friends to make recommendations for things that might help you. And lastly, the biggest point of all is that you're not alone. Research and science is finding more and more and more. As we know, there's still lots and lots and lots to figure out, but just know that somebody else, somewhere else, is going through this or something similar, and that you got this, and you can find support when you need it and ask for help when you need it. So I know this has kind of been a deviation of our normal chats, but if you have more questions, then let me know. I'm always here to help. And if there's any way that I can help you, maybe search for connections and something that you need, I'm glad to look into that as well. So thanks, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.